Well, hello and welcome to Binge Watch, the podcast where we take a look at the hottest new TV and film releases on streaming television platforms. I'm Hannah Fernando, the group editor of Woman and Woman and Home magazine.
And I'm Ian McEwan, writer on TV and Satellite Week, TV Times and What's on TV magazines. And today we're looking at the new releases that will be available on Friday the 13th of September 2024, including Clarkson & Co. in Prime Video's final Grand Tour road trip and a new series of Taskmaster on Channel 4.
We'll also be flicking through old issues of the fashion industry Bible with In Vogue, the 90s on Disney Plus, and checking out moving documentary series Into the Fire, The Lost Daughter on Netflix. But first, Ian, what is in the news?
Next week, of course, it's the Emmy Awards, the prestigious television awards. You'll be able to watch them on Monday, September the 16th on Sky Max. And leading the nominations, well, you've got Shogun, you've got The Bear, you've got The Crown, Baby Reindeer, which had a lot of press, didn't it? Ripley and Palm Royale. So a lot of our favourites that we've discussed on Binge Watch over the past year. What else is in the news, Hannah?
Well, Strictly starts this weekend. Would you believe it? Winter, Christmas is coming. We've got Paul Merson, the ex-Arsenal and England footballer, and we've got Sam Quek, who's the Olympic gold medal winning hockey player. We've got a few names in there, including Nick Knowles as well. You'll remember him from DIY SOS. So yes, lots to watch. And of course Shane Ward, who won the X Factor, and I wrote his book. So there we go. Shameless plug.
We're going to start on Prime Video with the final road trip for the Grand Tour, appropriately called One for the Road, and it will be available from Friday the 13th of September. Here's a clip.
And do the lock nuts first.
What are you talking about? What's a lock nut?
That is a lock nut.
This spanner's too big to reach.
We don't all have to go to the same old folks' home, do we?
No.
It's not obligatory after this that we all the next
He
day.
said he's deleting our numbers as soon as we finish. Right, and we've finished delete. There they've gone.
Well, Hannah, cast your mind back. It was in 2003 that Jeremy Clarkson, Richard Hammond and James May first teamed up on Top Gear as a presenting trio. And of course, after Clarkson punched a producer in the face because he couldn't have his hot dinner, they had to leave the Beeb, of course, and so they launched the Grand Tour on Prime Video, and very successful it has been too. 5 series, 187 cars, 73 breakdowns, and 41 countries. Yes, those are the stats. And I kind of feel like it's the right time to call time on the Grand Tour. And although there are a lot of things, particularly about Clarkson, that I don't particularly like, I always enjoy watching these three. I mean, it is always entertaining, though I kind of feel like aspects of the Grand Tour, which, I mean, I'm sure most people would have caught it, but they just go on a road trip, basically. It's a one-off road trip usually to somewhere quite exotic, in some interesting cars, which break down a lot. I think it's difficult to kind of keep coming up with new things. That's part of the problem. And of course, the guys, they're getting on a bit now. These are quite grueling shows to make. So the things that I particularly think of worn a bit thing, they modify their own cars, which is quite a fun idea, but clearly they're not doing it. Some team in a garage are having to do it. And also the pranks, which, again, they don't come up with the pranks and they probably don't actually do them. So you know that a lot of it is set up, but there are certain aspects where I think, yeah. For this one, they're going to Zimbabwe. They're choosing cars that they've always wanted to own. So a couple of them, very much from my era. There's a Mark I Ford Capri, beautiful yellow Capri, as seen in Mike Bubbins' comedy show. And there's also a Triumph Stag, which I remember from my childhood. It's the usual, really. I mean, they end up in Kubo Island in Botswana, which is where they filmed their first special. So it's very much par for the course. You know what you're going to get with the Grand Tour. Of course you do. It's just different location, different cars, same formula, but it's a winning formula. But I kind of feel that, yeah, it's right to park up now. Hannah, will you be sad to see the end of the Grand Tour? And did you enjoy this swan song?
I like what you did there, park up. You know what? I know exactly what you mean about Jeremy Clarkson, but I feel like the new Jeremy Clarkson era has come along, and this is kind of almost paled into the sort of history books to a degree, albeit both of us have discussed this a number of times and we both really enjoy it. And this is no different. It is a swan song, like you say. It's kind of, you know, the best to end with a bang. But it does feel like the right time, I think, particularly with Clarkson's Farm, particularly with everything else that he's doing at the moment. He seems to be making headlines for all sorts of other reasons. And I don't know, I think probably it needs a rest, whether it will come back after a few years and they'll have the same, because this really thrives on their dynamic, doesn't it, really, more than anything. It kind of is, they annoy me in a lot of situations with what they do. They're kind of ridiculous, and you know, Jeremy gets cross about things and does things to cars I don't think he should do, and just generally kind of is badly behaved at times, and I suppose that just all adds to it. But really, it's the banter between them that makes this. And so it will be nice, I think, in a few years' time. I can see them coming back together for that sort of nostalgic moment. And people will enjoy that. But I think everyone who likes this series, likes what they've done before, will absolutely enjoy this. But it didn't feel like a sad moment. It felt like the right moment.
Agreed. And let's have them back perhaps in a few years' time for a mobility scooter special. How about that? You've got to get down to the shop and back and see who comes first. Over on Disney Plus, arriving also on Friday the 13th of September, we have a new documentary series called In Vogue, the 90s. And here's a clip.
What's the defining publication about fashion?
Vogue, 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 Vogue. Of course, Vogue's biggest force is Anna Wintour.
Oh my God.
Why don't we taking your sunglasses off?
No, I'm going to wear them.
In the 90s, everything was changing.
It was a whirlwind, way too messy, a crazy, amazing,
Astonishing time.
The 90s turned the fashion industry upside down.
I mean, everybody knows Vogue, don't they? And it's a sort of pages of unobtainable joy that you look at and think, gosh, who can possibly afford these wares? But actually, you want it sitting on your coffee table. And Vogue has been through a bit of a roller coaster ride, and this is. Well, there's 6 episodes to it, firstly, which are kind of in a weird way this feels like a documentary. But there are so many people involved, I think that it would be hard to kind of squash down to your usual kind of hour or so. And this tells the story of the fashion industry during the 90s. And I suppose that interests me as well because, you know, the 90s was sort of my era, I suppose. And it's absolutely star-studded with interviews from, you know, Kim Kardashian, SJP, Victoria Beckham, and of course the sunglass-wearing Anna Wintour herself. And there is actually a note about that. I found her quite interesting in this actually because you kind of you imagine what someone's actually like. And you know, she's obviously a kind of a fiercely strong, powerful woman. But there was a bit of a joke about her sunglasses in one situation, and she said, "Yeah, I'm going to keep on wearing them." And she kind of changed the face of Vogue quite cuttingly for the last editor. She says, you know, that it needed changing. It was just boring. It was the same. It just every cover looked the same. And she put Vogue. She put Madonna on the cover of Vogue for her first issue in 1989, and that was a really big deal. It was controversial. That, you know, that sort of caused a stir, but that's what she wanted to do, and that's what it's kind of continued to do. And in a world of sort of declining print and interest levels, where you can get things on really any platform you want to for free, it continues to thrive in its own way, and it'll. I think Anna Wintour has got something. Well, she hasn't got anything to prove anymore, but she's the face of that brand, isn't she? And I don't know. I found it quite interesting. I also found it interesting hearing from the top designers who are included in there, like Stella McCartney, Marc Jacobs, hearing from them and what it means to them to be a part of something that is so big, because it's quite hard to believe that you are, in some instances, bigger than them. They want you, they need you, and you have that power. And we've seen some incredible shoots from Vogue. As I say, it all feels very unobtainable. I don't look at it and think, oh yeah, I can relate to this. But it is that coffee table thing where you just look at, and they do some amazing shoots with some incredible access. So from what I have seen so far, I did find it quite interesting. And I mean, I'm sure it's quite contrived, definitely. In lots of places, we don't see the real people. I'm sure there are lots of episodes behind the scenes that we will never be party to. But you certainly see more than I feel I've seen before. What did you think, Ian?
Well, I'm not particularly interested in fashion. It may surprise you to hear that, Hannah. But I absolutely loved this. And in fact, I went straight on to episode 2 because I had enjoyed it so much. It's the era of kind of the collision between fashion and the music business, isn't it? So there's quite a lot about that. Mark Wahlberg did a Calvin Klein campaign. And then, of course, they've got the George Michael video where he got all the supermodels. He wasn't in the video himself. It was just the supermodels, I think it's the big 5 of that time, lip syncing. So that was very interesting. And then you've got the era of the supermodels when they became real celebrities. And then suddenly in comes Kate Moss, who was recruited by Calvin Klein for a campaign, and the so-called heroin chic, which was quite controversial look. Yeah, there's lots of interesting characters in the fashion industry and in the fashion publishing industry, as you will know. I particularly enjoyed the stuff about Galliano and also Alexander McQueen. Really interesting. You don't have to be a fan of fashion to get, or even ever to have read Vogue, to get a lot out of this. I think it's really well done. Over on Netflix, arriving on Thursday the 12th of September, we've got a new documentary series called Into the Fire, The Lost Daughter. And here's a clip.
She'd been missing 21 years when they finally found me. I was only 17 years old when I put my daughter up for adoption. Throughout my life, she was always in my mind. When I found out she'd went missing, I thought, I gotta find this kid alive. I don't care if I have to walk over God's green earth to do it.
This is a 2-parter. It's actually produced by the actor Charlize Theron. And at the heart of it is a woman called Kathy Turkanian. So she's telling her story, basically. And when she was a teenager, she got pregnant and she gave up her baby for adoption, her baby girl. And it's something that clearly she's very much regretted ever since. Anyway, fast forward many, many decades to 2010, and she gets a letter from the police saying, well, first of all, they tell her that her daughter, who she's had no contact with, she's not heard from at all, went missing 20 years earlier. And secondly, that they've now found a body and they need to find out whether it is her daughter and can she send a DNA sample. So that's kind of the jumping off point. And she sends in the sample, but it isn't her daughter. But this kind of sets her off on a quest to find out, well, what did happen to my daughter? You know, because she ran away from her adoptive family when she was 14. What became of her? Is she still alive? So yes, she hits the internet. She sets up a Facebook page. She goes to meet her daughter's friends from high school. And I don't want to say too much about how it pans out, but there are some big twists and turns, and it's very moving, I must say. And she tells the story very well. I'm an absolute sucker for these kind of true crime type documentaries, and this is a very good one. And also, you can get through it quite quickly. It's only 2 episodes, but it is an amazing story. It really is. Very well done. What did you think, Hannah?
Oh my goodness me, this is so incredibly moving, isn't it? And I just think, say any parents. I think it probably perhaps affects parents more, maybe seeing something like this. I don't know. It's hard to ever, I think of this with real life stories that we tackle. It's hard to imagine a world in which you give up your child. But of course, there's many reasons and real reasons and courageous reasons that mothers and fathers have to make that decision sometimes. And I think that's what comes across in this, doesn't it, really? Because, you know, there she was giving up a daughter for adoption, and then finding out that this daughter has then gone missing all those years on, and then I don't know, I think that mother-daughter, mother-child bond is just so clear in this, and it's just incredibly well executed, I think. Really different, really heart-rendering for a number of different reasons, and yet it's sort of multi-layered. It's not just that kind of emotional twist. There's, like you say, you don't want to give too much away, but there's lots to this, I think. I mean, this probably could be made into a drama one day, and would be incredibly hard for someone to play that part, but maybe she could. It's just very, very interesting and moving.
We're going to end with a little bit of much needed light relief over on Channel 4, Hannah, arriving on Thursday the 12th of September. It is the latest series of Taskmaster. And here's a clip.
Daddy's back.
This sounds like a total pain.
Oh, no.
I found a pineapple and some string.
That feels gross.
Who's coming up with this nonsense? That was rubbish.
Well, you will have noticed that I was a little bit late to the podcast today, Ian, and that was because I was giggling away to the episode that was sent to us, because it's really rather funny. Now, I've got to be honest with you, I'm not a huge Taskmaster fan. You know, that I don't I'm not one of those people that's just waiting for this to drop at all. But I can see it's just brilliant. I mean, firstly, I absolutely love Greg Davies, and then the relationship that he has with Alex Horne. And those two are the ones that set these tasks for the comedians on the panel. Now, this is the 18th outing for this show, so it's popular. It's absolutely popular. So I am incredibly late to the party, really, having seen bits and pieces of it, but not really. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this. So I was having a proper chortle to myself just before we started this. They've got all the comedians on the panel. You've got Jack Dee, Andy Zaltzman, Babátúndé Aléshé, Emma Sidi and Rosie Jones. So they're the ones that have to go and do these ridiculously fiendish tasks which are set by the judges, Greg and Alex. And then they have to decide who which will the Taskmaster choose. It took me a little while initially to get to understand. Oh, that sounds a bit stupid. It makes me sound a little bit stupid, doesn't it? But what actually was going on here, because you get so caught up in, I mean, these comedians are just really funny anyway, without them doing really silly things, and they're just so quick with their responses, which of course I know they're comedians, but it just never fails to amaze me how quick these people can be, and it's just a laugh fest. It's just absolutely fun, and it's just really, I don't know, just seeing particularly someone like Jack Dee, who rarely smiles, does he? I really like Jack Dee. I really find his humour funny, and seeing him do things that he doesn't necessarily want to do is quite funny in itself. That alone. So I don't know. They're kind of out of their comfort zone. It's a bit of fun. It's the 18th series, and this is just going to keep on going, isn't it?
I hope so, because I am a massive Taskmaster fan. And although it's not being streamed, it's not being released as a box set, if you go onto Channel 4 streaming, every single previous series is on there. And I'm what they call a retro oneer, because once I got into Taskmaster, I just went back and watched every single series, and I absolutely love it, and I haven't grown tired of it at all. And yeah, as you say, Jack Dee is good value in this. I thought he's very funny. And Andy Zaltzman is quite an interesting character. He looks a bit like a mad professor. He's a bit of a polymath because he presents the news quiz, but he's also the stats man on Test Match special. And one fun thing about Taskmaster is that quite often the celebrities decide to wear quite a weird outfit to take part in it. So you had Nick Mohammed was dressed as a vampire all the tasks. Phil Wang wore a sort of yellow jumpsuit, which was much discussed because of the things you could see outlined below the waist. John Robbins, one of my favourites, he wore a Freddie Mercury outfit. Yeah, so it's always fun to see what people turn up in. And Zaltzman, he decides to do it wearing full cricket kit, including pads and gloves. And of course it was created by Alex Horne, and there's now a live Taskmaster experience, isn't there, that you can, I think it's sold out actually, but yeah, it's an absolute joy. I love it, and I'm so glad it's back. But yeah, if you've never seen it, well, what a treat you've got in store, because there's so many series to binge your way through. Now we've got to that time, Hannah, where we find out what you've been binge watching over the last 7 days.
Well, of course, it's all about the new Beetlejuice, but not for me. I went back to Prime and watched the original Beetlejuice. I love Beetlejuice, but don't say it 3 times, Ian.
Okay. Well, I found a film on Netflix, which I remember seeing. Cinema trailers are so long now, aren't they? You feel like you've seen the whole film. Anyway, I saw a trailer for Mother's Instinct not so long ago, which is a thriller starring Jessica Chastain and Anne Hathaway. So 2 big star names. It's a period drama, and they're both sort of suburban mothers, sort of living perfect lives. But then there's a tragic accident which affects their friendship. It's really good. They're both great in it, although it does go a little bit crazy at the end. Now, we've just got time to look ahead to next week, which is a very strong week, I have to say. What's on the binge watch menu, Hannah?
Emily Maitlis's Prince Andrew interview gets a second dramatisation in a Right Royal Scandal, which stars Michael Sheen and Ruth Wilson, and that's on Prime Video.
And rebooted sitcom Frasier returns to Paramount Plus with a Seattle radio station reunion in prospect. Yes, so we look forward to those and much, much more. But in the meantime, listeners,
watching.